Welcome back to On the Ball, the podcast series from the Vanderbilt Sports and Society Initiative. I'm Andrew Maraniss, and today I'm really excited to be joined by two familiar faces on this podcast, Associate Athletic Director Ricky Thrash and Vanderbilt women's soccer coach Darren Ambrose. Darren coming off preseason #1 ranking in SEC women's soccer, led the team to lead 8 appearance last year, but had, even on top of that great news, just an unbelievable experience over the last couple of weeks. You can see behind me, that's Darren on the field at the World Cup. I don't know if that is that the finals match or is that a previous one, but he was at the finals.
Germany. No, that's Germany, Ecuador.
Germany, Ecuador.
That
All
was
right.
my debut.
What's up?
That was my debut. Filling in
That was your
visits.
field maintenance debut, holding a bucket,
That's right.
getting soaked,
Getting
perhaps.
soaked.
Yeah.
in the historic New York, New Jersey
Stadium.
stadium. You know? Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah, so we will be assured to abide by all rules in terms of stadium names. So, Darren, why are you standing in the middle of the pitch holding a bucket?
A bucket.
What's the story here?
So our groundsman here several years ago, 3 years ago, Tyler Morris, actually left Vanderbilt. He's our grounds guy. Did a great job in elevating our fields here. Just really, really impressive. And he left here to go become basically the field manager for the Giant for MetLife Stadium. And Tyler and I have stayed in touch over the years, and since he left, I've asked his advice on things, checked in how he's doing. And when the World Cup came around, I actually asked him, could I buy tickets through the organization as opposed to the daylight robbery of SeatGeek and other places? And he said, well, why don't you just come work? I said, what? He said, yeah, we'll see if we can get you accredited and get on the ground staff. I can hire people to come and do field maintenance and, pitch preparation. And I was like, sign me up. Where do I do that? And honestly, full credit to Tyler, he assembled a bunch of guys whose job it is to grow grass at the highest level and look after stadiums. And then he had me. And I was the balancing act. So I went up for 3 games, Germany, Ecuador, England, Panama. And very fortunate for me, I got the final, which was unbelievable. So that was my job. There I'm at in my finest hour. Picking up grass, picking up bubble gum. I'm pretty sure I picked up Harry Kane's bubble gum at some point, or his chewing gum. Pretty sure I could have sold that for a lot of money.
Yeah, I hope you didn't throw it away. You got to put that on eBay or something.
Yeah.
Did you bring home any blades of grass or
There are
anything you
3
found on the
pieces.
field?
There are 3 pieces of sod from the field growing in a planter in my front yard. I loaded them into a bag. I got stopped at TSA checkpoint on the way through and opened up my bag, and there's 3 pieces of grass in a plastic bag, and I had to explain what it was. Got home, put them in a planter. I already have to trim them with scissors because the grass has grown already. It's amazing. So yeah, I got mementos. I got a piece of the net. There's a story behind that too. Spain cut the net down, and when they were done, Spain cleared off with their families, and there was a guy with a knife. One of the photographers wanted a piece, and I ended up over there, and he gave me the knife. I cut him a piece, and then I just started cutting the rest of the net and giving it to. I put a piece in my pocket, got a big piece of the net, and then I was giving it to all the photographers and people that were behind the ad boards because they didn't have field access. So I ended up cutting with this penknife all what was left of the net, and there was a good chunk left, and handing it to different people behind the ad boards. Amazing. Got a few net clips, got some confetti, got gold confetti. That green penny that I'm wearing right there, I have it. I have that too. I have the piece of sod, and I also have a red card as well, which
Well, let's
I
talk
have that
about
red
that.
card.
So, for some people are listening to this, they can't see these photos. Others are watching the YouTube video. There's a picture of you holding a red card in between 2 young women. What's going on in this picture here?
It's funny because I've got the red card turned the wrong way. On the other side of that are embossed in gold the names of the officials. This was the Germany-Ecuador game, and it was the first all-women's crew to take charge of a group game, I believe. And the referee in pink here is Tori Penso. And I've had one red card in my 34 years of coaching. And it was at the SEC tournament in 2022. I completely deserved the red card. In fact, I probably should have been put in jail for what I said. Um, Tori took the brunt of an emotional outburst. Didn't agree with the call, but I didn't handle it well, and she gave him a red card. I haven't seen her since then. I walk out onto the field before the game, and guess who's in the middle? It's Tori Penso. And
Wow.
Brooke, the young lady to the right in black, is actually an assistant referee who does a lot of our games here at Vanderbilt. Brooke is someone we know and respect. So saw them on the middle of the field, and I walked up to Tori and said, "Hey, remember me?" And she looked at me and she's like, I said, "Red card SEC tournament 2022." And she's like, "Oh yes, I remember you."
Wow.
So then we had a great conversation. I apologized, made Sherry happy, my wife, because she's always felt I should have apologized for what I said. And she gifted me, and Brooke gifted me the joy of an honorary red card on the field at the World Cup. So I now have that too. So
All
true
right,
story.
two more pictures to walk through here. So these one's a selfie with the
Yeah,
field about 10 feet behind you. The other,
yeah,
you're basically participating in a corner kick. Like,
yeah,
what was it like for someone who maybe dreamed as a kid of playing in the World Cup to
yeah,
be that close to the field during these
yeah.
matches?
It was wild. I went to the 1994 World Cup. I've been to both World Cup finals in the United States, 1994 and this one. 1994 was at the Rose Bowl, and I bought Claudio Reyna's ticket from him outside the stadium. Claudio was on the men's national team at the time, and he was roommates with one of my best friends at the time at UVA, and I was working camp in Long Beach for a camp company, a soccer company, and he took me to the final. I bought his ticket. I have a picture. I actually have a picture of me and Claudio Reyna with his girlfriend that became his wife, Danielle, buying his ticket. And I sat up with Claudio's dad all the way up at the top behind one of the goals. So this one, far better seats.
Mm.
Right. I actually have video of Argentina coming out of the tunnel, England coming out of the tunnel, out of the dressing rooms because they were probably 15 feet from our office where we sat. But this was one of my seats in the game. My seats, I stood behind the ad boards. I actually got all the way behind the goal, which is the one on the right. You can see that's the final. I'm right at where the 18-yard line meets the end. So I had unbelievable view of any action this side. It was just all game, just being able to be and taking the noise too and the crowd. So yeah, I've got loads of pictures of, that's the corner at the end of the Panama game where England were wrapping up the game. I was behind the goal for the Jude Bellingham corner kick goal that went in. So yeah, just unbelievable. I really am so grateful for the experience.
Are you someone who, I mean, all your decades in soccer, could you still get starstruck seeing anyone? Was there one
Yeah.
moment that stands out like you're like, I can't believe this is me right now?
Yeah, sure. Well, when Harry Kane first walked down, Jordan Pickford came out from for England, obviously, and I was literally standing there probably 10 feet from when they came out of the dressing room the first time. And I've taken video of that and was fortunate to get that. And then when Messi showed up, I did the same thing. I was, 10 feet away and he brought the team together before they went out to warm up and they said something I didn't understand, but I got the idea and rallied the troops and out they went for the final. So yeah, when you see those people, it's kind of like, oh wow, yeah, but what's really interesting is, well, first of all, that's the corner where I have the sod from. So where he's taking the corner, that is actually where I picked up loads of chunks of sod. But what was really cool was actually afterwards seeing the players just be players turning into families and just being a guy that sat with his mom and his kids or his wife or his girlfriend, like Lamine Yamal right there with his girlfriend with the trophy. It's just like another object they carry around. But watching the humanity of him after the 2 hours after the game, everyone had gone except for some FIFA reps and the grounds crew, which was us and all the Spanish players and their families. And the thing that struck me was how young some of these guys are. You can't tell from the stands. When you go down and you sit amongst them, it could be my kids. Like they are young and they are on the biggest stage in the world at 19, 20 years old, 18, 19, 20. I mean, some of them look like they barely started shaving. It
Mm.
was it was really touching to see them with their mom and just sitting and enjoying the moment. And we just wandered around amongst them, and if they were wandering around going between families, I took a picture with Unai, the goalkeeper, to take a picture, and they all obliged. I had pictures with 4 or 5 players. They were very graceful, and very, very open to it. Full credit to them. But that was the one thing that I left with, was the size of the event and all the things that go into it and seeing them. But then at the end, my last takeaway was watching them just be people on a field, running with their kids, taking pictures, um, sitting on the ground like they're having a picnic. That was kind of really eye-opening, because we don't see that. We just don't see that very often. And that was one thing I won't forget in a hurry.
Oh, that's amazing. Well, Ricky, I know as our resident soccer expert here
Yeah.
in the building, um, you have a number of questions that you wanted to ask Darren, also observations of your own on the World Cup. So
Yeah.
I'll turn it over to you here for the next segment here of this interview. Ricky, take it away.
Beard
Awesome.
one and beard two right here. Here we
That's
go.
it. That's it. Andrew, come on, man. Step it up. You got to join the club. You got to
Yeah,
join the
gotta
club.
go it somewhere.
Coach, thanks. First of all, thanks for sharing, your pictures, your stories, because I mean,
Yeah.
that's absolutely phenomenal. I think you're going to be undefeated in any icebreaker around two truths and a lie. Like, because I don't know how many people are going to believe you got a selfie with Lamine Yamal holding,
Yeah,
the World Cup trophy,
yeah,
and talking to his girlfriend in the background.
yeah.
Did you feel like just being, first of all, I guess being on the field like that, like being a coach, like how does that feel? Like how did you kind of take that in? Like did you ever find yourself like was there ever like a blurred line where you're like that's not a foul or like like kind of the coach's instinct or your view of the game took over while you were down there?
No, it was actually refreshing just to take in the environment, and
Yeah.
you're not in a place to really make any. You can't see the game fully because
Mm,
of where you are, so you're limited in what you can see at the other end. And it was interesting to see some of the diving up close and personal. You could see it. I mean, it was like,
yeah.
okay, get up. Like, I get mad at the TV when I'm watching that, and you can tell.
Yeah.
It is faster than you realize down there when
Mm,
they do get fouled, that you have to hesitate for a minute. Was that a foul? Did they dive? And
mhm.
even the dives do look for a second like, was that? But there are some that you do pick out. Like, okay, come on, man, get up.
Come on. Yeah, that's awesome. I
Yeah,
think, for me, as just a spectator watching everything on television, watching everything on social media, like really immersing myself into the World Cup and into the spectacle of everything. Um, one of the things that really struck me, and I mean you touched on this too, but like just how many times do we have opportunities to come together, like just
yeah,
as human beings around,
yep,
around the sport? So many things really flashed as like, just really hilarious or heartwarming,
yep,
but one of the things that really stood out, and I know we've got a bit of a department connection too, was
yeah,
Scotland and the
yeah,
what are they, the Tartan Army and how they took
yeah,
over Boston. I think they drank all the beer in Boston.
yeah,
If I think yeah, like Sam Adams was like, we literally don't have any more beer. But
yep,
I know we also have Coach Langdale. He has a connection to.
yeah.
He's from Scotland and was able to participate. I don't know if you were able to share much of his perspective or if he shared any stories with you about that.
So I was really happy that he decided to go. I
Yeah.
think, the first thing about, I mean, Scotland haven't been in it, and I want to say, is it 28 years, something like that, 20. So I remember when Scotland were in it last. I
Mm,
also remember watching Scotland in 1978 on TV when it was in Argentina. Like I remember that too. It's weird, but yeah, Callum, I was just glad when he went up in his kilt and he sent pictures back to us of it. I was just really, really happy for him. The thing about the Scottish is they know the team's not very good, so they know regardless they're just going to go for a good time.
why not?
There's a low bar for Scotland, right? So there's no love lost between the English and the Scottish. So
I can't tell, Coch. I could never have told. Yeah.
Even Callum, when we were playing Argentina the day before, said, hey, let's go Messi, and I'm like, shut up, man, come on. Scotland's favorite team is whoever England's playing against.
That's
So
awesome.
Cal had a great time. He sent some pictures, and it actually was cool because I decided Madison, my daughter, lives in Boston,
Mhm.
and one of her part-time job is giving historic bar crawl tours of Boston. And
Wow.
she was like blown away by the just the sense of humor. And when they, one of them found out she was English and they made her go stand in the corner. Like, it was true story. I mean,
Excellent.
so I actually bought a ticket for she and I to go to the Scotland-Morocco game. And I wanted to experience it because I just think rarely ever in our world do you get to see a nation come together in another country. You may go
Yeah.
to England and see it. You may go to Holland and see it. You may be in the US and feel that patriotism, but rarely do you see it at that magnitude and depth of feeling
Mm,
in another country. Someone else is
hmm.
coming in and suddenly Boston is Scottish and they've got a sister city in Glasgow all of a sudden.
Right, right.
The sense of humor, the banter, the pride, the national pride that was exhibited by just about every nation
Hmm.
is heartwarming, and yet not in a we're better than you, looking down on you, celebrating who they are and their country and their proud moments, and doing it with others. When I was up there for the Morocco Scotland game and listening to the songs and being a part of it, and then running into some Scottish fans and seeing the cones all over the city on different things.
Hmm.
That's called civil disobedience. That's what they were doing. That goes back to Scottish days um, but just getting a sense of pride that they had. One of the most touching moments of the entire World Cup for me was being in that stadium in Boston when the Scottish fans sang Flower of Scotland, when they sang their anthem.
Mm,
It was goosebump moment. And I
mm.
mean it. It was so incredible. And yet also at the same time, the dancing with the Moroccans and there's no violence. It's just a celebration of the game belongs to the world and we own this part of it and we're going to play our part. And it's
Wow.
just it's unlike anything that I saw it in '94 with the Dutch in Orlando. They was just
Mm,
hilarious. The Dutch this time, the great big orange. Another one,
yeah,
the Norwegians, the row. I mean, everyone in the world now knows what the row is, right? It's
it's incredible.
how do you how do you explain that other than just again the reach of the game and the passion? It's owned by the fans.
Yeah,
And I think that's what was I took away from the World Cup was the ability of countries to be heard and seen in a positive light in an era and a time when we're all struggling for good things.
man. I think, so much about kind of the build up to the World Cup was really, and rightfully so, revolving around a lot of the political situations, both
Yeah,
in the US, abroad. And really, FIFA is an organization that I feel like is rightfully so. It takes a lot of heat and
oh yeah,
is never free from allegations of corruption and things like that. But one of the new field being expanded, we've now got what is it, 60
48 to
or four,
64
yeah,
potentially
to
this
60,
time.
yeah.
Yeah,
And you know, the last team to make it in a lot of ways was Cape Verde. And to see the run that they went on,
yeah,
it really, man, it really solidified. And I wonder what you think about, like, does this mirror the growth of the game that we now
yeah,
have
yeah,
this number of countries that can be represented and be competitive? We're talking
yeah,
about a team in Cape Verde that they didn't lose. They're the only team that Spain wasn't able to beat,
yeah.
on their way to victory. What are your thoughts on that?
I do. I think as much as I am at odds with FIFA over a lot of things as a fan and as a
Yeah.
person who has spent his entire life, my entire career has been from when I was five to kick a ball to where I sit today has been the game.
Mm,
And at all levels. I do agree it's time to give others a chance. I was skeptical about the 48, but it was very quickly blown away and like blown out the door. Like, no, this is a good thing. Like we've
mm,
got more nations, we've got players. The other thing is a lot of those players are good because they're playing in all these other domestic leagues. They're not playing in their country. They're growing. But the way you're going to grow the game in their country is to create
Mm,
idols and heroes and role models for those kids in those countries to look up to continue to play and grow the game into maybe their own league. Um,
mhm.
so I think it was a good thing. Now I don't know about 64, but certainly 48
Yeah,
and I think it proved this year that it's. I think we've all got like this hangover of I don't know more World Cup to watch. You know, the length of it, it sustained everybody's interest. The games were not, there was one game. Germany was the one game that's was seven something, 7-1, 7-0. The one game. Everything
hmm
else was pretty close and some arguably upsets. Spain tying against them, world champions tied against them. It shows that it's a level, it's a game that anyone can win. The
yeah,
best team doesn't always win. The fastest team, the biggest team, the strongest team doesn't always win this sport. And I think that's the beauty and the attraction for fans, frankly. So I
yeah,
am a fan of that. I'm just not exactly in agreement with the way the the political fallout is. It seems to follow FIFA everywhere.
yeah.
And now, as we know, we've just created another big problem trying to sell part of it. So
It's ridiculous. Yeah. And that's for those who don't know, or maybe listening at home and have tuned out of soccer, FIFA, once again, just we cannot escape any of these allegations of just blatant right in front of your face corruption. We're now
yep,
planning to sell part of the organization in the World Cup to private equity, essentially, to just openly, it looks like openly take bribes. But there's been some pushback from a lot of the different
a lot.
world
Yeah,
federations, and UEFA
yep,
has said that they'll boycott,
yeah.
which would be all the teams in Europe. Um,
And
I
I
think
think the fans would
CONCACAF,
support that. And I think the CONCACAF, and I
yeah,
think the fans support it. The fans and the statement that UEFA made that basically said this is the people's game and you don't get to sell it.
yeah,
And you're marketing, well, we've got a great thing going, but you don't get to sell the game. It's not, it's owned by people. And
hmm
I just thought it was a great statement. I bet fans would support the boycott all over the world.
I agree. And it's so interesting because I think, a lot of the build up to the World Cup, I think I was focused, and I remember having conversations with Andrew and being worried about when is enough enough, and are we pushing people, the fans, out of it
Out of the
and
game.
away from the game
Yes.
when you learn about how much the tickets are potentially going to cost.
Yep.
Luckily, thankfully, it ended up being almost too big to fail, too
Yeah.
big,
Yep.
it could overcome a lot of this corruption by FIFA. But one issue in particular was at the heart of everybody that I know, and kind of how they experienced it, how they watched it, and that was, I mean, it sounds like your red card was a little less controversial, or a little less. Yours wasn't as borderline as Flo Balogun's red card.
Yeah, that's
You
a
know,
talking point. It's unfortunately a stain that could have been managed without political influence, I think. And I think I feel bad for the US team. I really do. And I feel
yeah,
bad for Balogun because I don't know that he wanted that. And I think it was you're playing with a spotlight on you and you've brought undue pressure onto a team that's already under pressure.
yeah,
And I feel bad for the US because I genuinely I think most of us believe that US team was capable, even without Balogun, that would have been a better game.
hmm
And the US had just as good a chance of winning. And I think they immediately tipped the scales. The spotlight and the swirling noise around the team that game must have been overwhelming.
yeah,
So I do feel for him. I really do. And it's a shame that that's kind of one of the things, one of the talking points after the event.
hmm
Some obviously we can argue and talk all we want about the political sidebars of Iran's treatment of the referees that weren't given visas. There's some things there that
yeah,
just didn't seem to, they kind of left a little bad taste in people's mouths. But again, would
hmm
argue overall the on-field product was fun. The way that the social media that showed the fans and showed the stories of fans and Freddie the German who traveled all over the country and
yeah,
right
yeah.
was invited in by everybody. He's got like a million something followers all of a sudden, and I
It's
think that
insane.
was the highlight. with the stories that came out.
I agree. I agree. And and it's a beautiful thing. And I think a lot of people are, maybe this is a chance to bring Andrew back into the conversation. Like, let's get
Yeah.
Andrew
Yep.
because I feel like Andrew embodies just like very similar
Average.
the most average person that I could think. No, I'm kidding. But no, but no, Andrew, from
Hey,
from the standpoint of you're not bringing a lot of baggage to this. It's just
that's a nice way. That's a great euphemism.
Yeah, you don't have
Yeah.
any
yeah,
bias.
yeah,
Yeah.
you don't have any baggage. You're a blank slate, man. You're a blank slate. You're drinking it in. You're
Yeah.
drinking it
Let's
in.
write on that blank slate right now.
Yeah.
How do we ride this wave? How do we keep the momentum going?
Yeah.
Andrew, did you enjoy the World Cup? Is the sport, is the game something that is your interest peaked? Do you want to continue this relationship with soccer?
I love the World Cup. So the type of fan I represent perhaps is the fan that does get into the World Cup, whether it's the men's World Cup or the women's World Cup
Yeah.
or
Hmm.
the Olympics. And I kind of compare it to Olympic hockey. Like I'm not a huge Predators fan. I don't have a favorite NHL team.
I
But
got
when
you.
the Olympics come around, as someone that was 10 years old at when Lake Placid took place, like that captured my attention. And I've loved Olympic hockey ever since. So I'm that type of casual fan that's learning these players' names that
Hmm.
are so familiar to hundreds of millions of people around the world. Like the World Cup is when I learn who they are. I feel like the games are really exciting. I love the fan support and the environment and the atmosphere that is created at these World Cup games. But I don't know if I went out to just a high school field with 200 people watching the game and there's no excitement that I would um, find that as fun. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah,
Like I hate to
yeah.
admit that,
Yeah.
but that's kind of where I am. So I do think that there's an opportunity to turn a fan like me through the World Cup and that excitement and make it where it's not just every 4 years, but like how do I continue to engage with the game?
How do we
I'm
fill the
ripe for that, but it hasn't happened yet.
how do we fill the void in Andrew's life that he doesn't know he
How,
has?
man,
Yes,
Well, what
well,
was your team? Who was your team, Andrew? Who was did you find yourself like rooting for somebody or no?
it was game by game. I was always rooting for the underdog, like in
I
whatever
like that.
game it was.
Yeah.
Um, and you let me borrow a book called Relegated, which is an American tour through Great Britain and seeing soccer at all levels
Yeah.
of the game. And I loved that. If I could go on that tour, I'm sure I would love it, and
You
just seeing
would.
how much it means to people in these smaller communities. I don't like when I'm wearing a Milwaukee Brewers shirt right now, like as we're recording this, the Brewers and the Packers and Vanderbilt, I feel like are a part of who I am. And I feel like
Mhm.
I would be a fraud adopting a new team in a sport that I'm just learning where it hasn't been a part of who I am forever.
Yeah.
And that maybe that's something I need to get over. But I even feel that way with the Predators. Like I didn't grow up with that. I feel like there are people that have been hardcore Preds fans since the year they started, '98, whatever it was, and that I would just be jumping on the bandwagon, and I feel
Yeah.
uncomfortable with
The
that.
Will Ferrell band. I was saying you have a place on the Will Ferrell bandwagon.
Yeah, the potato chip
No.
commercial. That's
Potato
right.
chip. Yep, you've got so no, I still think that it's to do with like if you went to a couple of Nashville SC games and you got to know Surridge and Mukhtar and some of the
Yeah.
Yeah,
personalities you may and you feel the excitement because I'm putting a plug in here for Nashville. I was a season ticket holder and until I just couldn't keep up going to all the games, but still like to see them doing well. BJ's a friend of mine, the head coach. Like if you knew the personalities you
yeah,
may find, and you saw the fans and the excitement, you may find yourself more drawn to it. As
yeah,
you went to England and went to one or two of these clubs and got to know what it means to people, you may find a connection that you didn't know you had. I think a lot of it is deeply cultural for people. Um,
Mhm.
I think that they find a connection early on, and it usually is familial, especially if you're in Europe and you live in a town or a city, right?
yeah,
But the globalization of the game I ask people all the time, well, why are you a Villa fan? Why are you a Tottenham fan if you're a US resident? And they've got a story. Some people have a
Yeah.
genuine story. I went to London, or I saw this person, or I first place I went. There's a connection in some way, shape, or form, and it just grows.
Hmm.
So I think
So I
that
need a trip to Europe, I think is what needs to
I
happen.
think
And
that sounds about right. I'll go with you.
yeah,
Let me be your guide. We're going.
okay, let's go
All
to
right.
some in person, and then I'll be hooked, no
Um,
doubt.
That's
Oh,
great.
Darren, I
That's
wanted to
great.
ask you a question too before as we wrap up. Every year it seems like after the World Cup, there's all these discussions in the U.S. about like how do we compete at the highest level on the men's
yeah,
side, and there's a lot of talk this year, especially about the cost of travel soccer, club soccer.
yeah.
Um, but I assume that those costs are there on the women's side too, and we are at the top of the heap in the when the Women's World Cup rolls
Yep.
around. Like, what do you see as the well, first of all, as a coach, the girls that eventually make their way to Vanderbilt, have they participated in this costly system?
Yeah.
Are you seeing avenues limited in who can pursue this dream as a college student athlete? And what do you see as a solution to getting our best athletes playing soccer and playing at the highest level on the men's side?
I think that the men's is a different animal. I think we always think it's the same sport, right? It's not quite. It's the same size field, it's the same ball, same rules generally. But when it comes to the development process, and I think what we've got to remember is that the men's game has been around for 150 years or more.
Mm,
And when you go that deep into it, it's such a historic cultural tradition.
mm,
And England's a great example. I left there in 1989. And one of the funny things about my background, actually, truthfully, is that my aunt is the one who took me to Bramall Lane to watch Sheffield United because she played on a women's team, but it was like underground. Like you didn't see women playing. I went to Bramall Lane with three women, my aunt's two friends and her. Most people didn't have that experience. They grew up as young boys with their dads, and they, it was not a pay for play system. The geography of the United States makes it's our strength, but it's our weakness in the development of this game. We're so big. We have so many different geog elements, climate. I mean, there's all kinds of development things, but also we don't have a central system really trying to identify these players. A lot of inner city kids, similar to basketball, some of the most
mhm,
talented players are coming from, from less fortunate backgrounds, and they can't afford to pay right to pay the fees. Frankly, that's where a lot of the best players are coming from on the men's side a lot of the time. Um, you got around on the women's side, the US were one of the first countries to actually adopt women's soccer as a sport. In college, we have college sports. We've had college soccer for over 40 years. And obviously in the last, 15, 20 years in particular, it's grown and now is rivaling pro leagues. So we've had this development system in the US for women that none of the other countries in the world have really had. So we're already ahead in the women's game. We were ahead by a significant stretch.
mhm,
And now what's happening is that the gap between the US women's game in the pro structure is starting to go. We still lead the way in facilities and stadiums and opportunities for women. We really do. But I would say that from my knowledge and conversations with people, the women's game in Europe and you go out to the east as well into China, Japan, and they've always been good. South America, look at the Brazilian culture and around their men's game has transferred to the women's game. So I think that what I'm very curious about in this next 10, 20 years is as the rest of the world invest in women's soccer, there's a depth to the sport in other countries that I still think we're reaching for here in the US. And even on the women's side, we've just happened to be further ahead very early. And now it's can we continue to grow the depth of this um, and stay ahead, quite frankly.
Yeah,
But we were out of the gates early on the women's side. The rest of the world was way behind in opportunities for women. So cultural win for the United States, I think.
I see. I see.
Land of
Ricky, I'll
opportunity.
let you wrap it up here.
Man, Andrew, I got one last closing statement that I want to make. And I feel like, well, two things. One, I don't think you're poser in your lane if you pick a team and you get on board, if you want to do that. as long as that team is not Arsenal. If you pick Arsenal, you're lame. But other than that, that's cool. Pick a team and get into it if you want to get into it. Maybe find a player that you liked and follow. And speaking of the players, that to me, that's my closing kind of sentiment when thinking about the World Cup and sitting down and watching these matches with my dad, who like
Yeah,
is, not into soccer at all. And some of the conversations that we had around how global the game is, but also the impact of, and this is, we could probably do a whole nother podcast about this, but just the impact of the African diaspora and the way that you see it in the sport. And you see these teams that all across the world, you see players that you see maybe the most diversity you ever see represented in a
yeah,
country is represented in that team. And it just, the way that you see geopolitics and history and all
yeah,
of these things so intertwined
correct.
in a soccer team, in a football team, and the people who are representing these different countries, it blew me away. And it sparked so many conversations with my dad and so many interests that have been piqued. And man, I'd love to read more and learn more about like different countries. And there you go. Boom.
How
What a
soccer
plug. What a
explained
plug.
how soccer explained. I did not write this book.
Yeah, yeah.
How soccer explains the world, an unlikely theory of globalization. So that's the next one, Andrew. I'll be filtering to you.
All right.
But
All
Ricky,
right.
I agree with you. I think it's how that's also reflected back into the fan base, right? What you see on the
Hmm.
field and the diversity and the passion, and it's reflected back. And at the same time, the teams are lifted by the passion of the fans.
Love it.
Um, I will also say, if anyone's interested in understanding FIFA, there's a Netflix documentary called Greed. If you
Mm,
haven't watched it, watch it. There's a guy from The Guardian a few years ago. They also explained how FIFA grew and how their corporate partnerships grew and how the game grew and then how it became when money got involved at that level, how it became corrupt and how bribes were, and it goes through the whole thing. It's a phenomenal documentary. It really is. It's called, I believe it's called Greed. But yeah, there's a lot more to come for the game, I think. Starting on West End with the women's soccer team at Vanderbilt
let's go.
That's right.
this
Let's
fall.
go.
Let's go.
Yeah,
Everybody
This
can
yeah.
buy
fall.
their tickets
August
and
12th.
support this team that's ranked number one heading into the season. Darren, Ricky, thank you. This has been a great conversation. Look forward to many more
Yeah,
conversations like this in the future as you guys pull me along. And who knows, I'll have my favorite team besides the Commodores here
there you
soon.
go.
All
Thanks,
right.
guys. Enjoyed it always.
Take care, guys. All
Bye.
right.